Welcome to How to Make Films and Influence People.
Hey everybody, and welcome to How to Make Films and Influence People with Peter and Andrew, where we talk about our own approach to screenwriting and filmmaking, discuss great works of cinema, and blasphemously imagine how they could be remade. This week we'll be talking about Cinema Paradiso, also catching up on what we've been watching. But first of all, I'm Peter, successful filmmaker, film professor, and screenwriter, and this is Andrew.
Filmmaker, screenwriter, but not a movie theater projector by choice.
Okay.
If that even exists anymore.
And you mean like you're not mechanically the machine that projects, or you're not the person who does it?
Doing this. I've decided I'm not going to do that. But,
okay.
Yeah.
I think now it's more like, boop, is the...
That's the button.
Yeah.
You know, I might reconsider that. That seems a little easier.
It's a little easier. I feel like fewer fire hazards these days.
Yeah, surprisingly.
It's a big part of old film. We'll get into that as we discuss Cinema Paradiso, but...
What have you been watching? What have you been watching? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you form opinions about the people who made it?
What have you been watching?
I watched this movie called 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and I've heard a lot about this. It's kind of a rom-com. It features Hugh Grant and Andie MacDowell, and it's kind of a fun premise. So the idea of this, it's in the title, the 4 Movies and a Funeral. It's basically the whole movie takes place during these 5 events, but it's kind of fun. So it starts off at somebody's wedding, and we kind of get to know these different characters, see people kind of, you know, are attracted to these people are friends, these people have these personality traits, and the wedding ends, and then you don't see them again until the next wedding, at somebody else's wedding. And so it's kind of fun, this jump in time of how people have changed, but you don't really see that change. You just see, okay, this is the new situation with all of these people. And then it kind of evolves from there, and we kind of focus in on this Hugh Grant relationship with Andie MacDowell and see how that kind of takes off. I will say I liked the premise. The chemistry between the 2 leads I did not see at all. And this whole movie, I was actively rooting against them getting together, even though it was very clear that's where they were headed in this movie. I was like, they can't really be doing this. There's just nothing there. These 2 have nothing in common. But that's, where it ended up. And I would say that probably ruined the movie for me. Even though there was some funny parts to this, especially in the beginning. And I liked the premise. But yeah, I feel like with a rom-com, if you can't buy the relationship, it just kind of ruins things. I don't know. Have you seen this one?
I have. And I like, it's interesting. I totally agree with everything you're saying, except that I wouldn't say it ruined the film for me. But I do like that constraint of, we're going to see you at these specific moments.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really cool storytelling device. I also think, I don't know if you felt the same way, but there was a year or two when everyone I knew was getting married. And there's sort of like a stage of life when everybody gets married. And, there'll be random weddings at other times, but that's kind of a big thing. And so it seemed like it was tapping into a part of, I like that idea of this phenomenon that happens in life that we haven't really seen in film. This is going to be a film that is about that, but really just about that as a jumping off point. I like that. I like Hugh Grant. I agree with that chemistry. I like Notting Hill. I thought the chemistry in Notting Hill worked a lot better. I thought Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant.
Yeah. I feel like it just depends on the person. You'd think Hugh Grant's so charming. Anybody. I don't know if it was the acting or directing or what, but this one didn't work. The other ones, though, he's great in rom-coms. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I even like the film 9 Months, which no one likes. But
I don't think I've seen that one.
I just think Hugh Grant is very charming. So
he is.
You said it did ruin the movie for you, so that's kind of disqualifying?
Yeah. The end of the movie, I was like, I just don't like it. Like, I had to come down and I would not ever watch that again.
Okay,
or recommend it. Yeah.
Well, I have what I watched this week, which might also be in the category of probably a good film, but I didn't really like it, was Disclosure Day.
Oh.
The new Steven Spielberg. Have you seen this?
Haven't seen it yet.
Well, I won't say too much, except to say exactly what happens in the end. But I found it to be not what I wanted it to be. And maybe that's my fault. But I would say that on both a theme level and a story level, I felt it seemed very similar to me, like to the movie The Running Man. Basically, just there's a big chase happening, and people are on the run, and they're trying to, there's some secrets, but most of it is just you're on the run. And I feel like Steven Spielberg should be better than that. Like, there should be a little bit more narrative depth. Like, there are thematic things going on, and so there is more depth in some ways, but I feel like largely the story is just people on the run. And that seems just narratively not that interesting. And not that it's, and I actually talked favorably about The Running Man, but that's because it delivered on what I expected it to be. And I feel like Disclosure Day is probably a better film, but I was expecting more.
Right. You weren't expecting that. Is it kind of like War of the Worlds, where they're just kind of like on the run the whole time? Is that the vibe of it or no?
It's more like The Running Man. It's more like
it's just The Running Man.
Evil company / government wants to keep secrets hidden, and a few brave people are trying to get them out.
Oh, so it's against the government, which he does well.
It's a quasi government. Technically, it's like a private organization, but it's
E.T.
interesting.
doesn't make an appearance in this.
I won't get into that.
Oh,
but
okay. He's home. He might come back. I don't know.
Neither confirm nor deny that. But I would also say that aliens the movie is about aliens, whether they, whatever the movie comes down on. The whole premise of the movie is there's information that relates to aliens in one form or another, and will these people be able to get it out or not? And I just felt like the actual information when it was delivered was underwhelming, and I don't know.
It kind of builds up to that point, and you're like, oh, it's got to deliver.
Maybe reasonable people can disagree, but to me, I was not impressed. And so, Steven Spielberg is a master of the art, and so at every point things are done well, but it just wasn't quite what I was hoping for.
Yeah. What is your favorite alien movie? Top of your head.
Oh. Well, there's aliens as monsters, which I think Alien probably. But then movie dealing with aliens, it would have to be Arrival.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That movie was so good, Arrival.
That movie was a gut punch. Just, all the insights into parenting and your approach to life. And I thought Arrival was really good. And I think Arrival was like, we're going to take aliens, but now we're going to spin that out into all sorts of different ways what that could mean for humanity. And I felt like Disclosure Day was, there's something regarding aliens, and we're going to turn it into a chase movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
It's got to pay off.
So, I think people should still see it. I think we should, Steven Spielberg's probably just scraping by, so we need to support him. But it's a well-made movie, but it just wasn't quite what I wanted.
Not your favorite, yeah.
Yeah. And Four Weddings and a Funeral, I think also a good movie, but not your favorite.
Not my favorite, no.
Andrew, have you tried Duncan & Bliss's new upper management flavor?
I have. It didn't make eye contact with me once.
Dark chocolate ice cream so rich and bitter it genuinely believes it's better than you.
It gave me a brain freeze and didn't apologize.
It scheduled a meeting to tell me it tastes good.
It took credit for the caramel swirls even though the caramel swirls do all the work.
But somehow, you keep coming back.
I desperately want its approval.
Duncan & Bliss Upper Management. It won't remember your name.
But you'll remember it.
Available now, unless it's in a meeting.
Well, let's get into our film of the week, Cinema Paradiso. What can you tell us about this, Andrew?
1988, Giuseppe Tornatore, or Tornatore. A filmmaker recalls his childhood when he fell in love with the movies at his village's theater and formed a deep friendship with the theater's projectionist. And this is a movie that it starts off kind of in the future day, or I guess present day, and then it's a guy thinking back on his past. So we get him present day. He lives in a nice apartment with some woman, and then he gets news from his mother that somebody died, Alfredo, and he starts remembering these past events he had growing up in this little town in Sicily, and it kind of just runs from there. But it's a fun little story of him as a kid, and then him as he slowly grows up, his friendship with this man named Alfredo, who is kind of a father figure for him since his father died in the war, and their relationship with the theater, with Alfredo running the projection, running the film at the theater, and then this kid, Toto, really wanting to help out and be part of that because he loves film. And I do feel like this story it's pretty straightforward in what it's delivering. It sets up the premise. It doesn't really have a lot of twists and turns. It's not trying to trick you in any way. It's very heartfelt. It's very emotional, but very kind of direct in what it's trying to do. And I think there's movies that, that's what you're looking for in a movie. This is definitely one of those. How did you feel about this kind of straightforward approach to this movie?
It's interesting because, I feel like it's the kind of story I've seen before, and I've seen the film before, but many years ago, I've seen before. But this is it's not an old film, but I think the idea of somebody looking back on their life and reflecting on some, moments that really impacted them. I think it's not like that's a groundbreaking narrative structure, but I think it's one that works. It's playing into our human experience of looking back on our childhood and thinking about our formative years. It's also narratively something where we know that we're going to get to the future. And so we're setting up some things. At some point, this boy is going to turn into that man from before. And so that's sort of, it's giving us something to think about even as we're watching these, flashback stories. So I think that works well, and I think the idea of we're going to spend all this time in this little village and see this little life. I think the idea of just spending time there and seeing the way that people relate to each other, the struggles that they have, I feel like you don't want to overcomplicate it. So I think that works well.
Yeah, it's very fun to just see all the kind of side characters in the story that are there consistently throughout the film from beginning to end. And you kind of, from the beginning, you kind of don't know, like, where is the story headed, other than it's more of like a coming of age, just watching this kid grow up. And there's a lot of these little, I almost say like mini stories or vignettes of, okay, now he's doing this, now the theater burns down, now he's in love, he's trying to get the girl. And it's all interesting. You always have an idea of what's supposed to come next, but it doesn't feel like there's a big string throughout the story of this is ultimately where we need to go, other than we're just watching somebody grow up. And that's a fun movie. That's something fun to watch, but it is different than a lot of other films in that way.
Yeah, I think that there are a bunch of things that really resonate with people with this film. This is the kind of movie that movie lovers love. And I think that it's worth discussing sort of why and what, because it's not a movie that most people have seen, I would say. But I think people who consider themselves a movie lover have often seen Cinema Paradiso. And so I think it's worth talking about what about it specifically speaks to people who love movies. And I think also just how does it connect to people? I think why it's not more broadly known. It's sort of a somewhat older film at this point. It's a very small story. It's not like it's a big action-packed adventure. And even if you're talking about a drama of growing up, it's not even a high-concept drama, like coming-of-age story, really. It's kind of a pretty low... I mean, it's a boy with sort of a father figure. His father died in the war, but at some points it's admitted that he died. At some points it's like maybe he'll come back, but his father died in the war, and he has this sort of father figure, and he learns about life, kind of. And that's, I think, in many ways, rich storytelling, but also just sort of low concept. It's not dinosaurs, running free in an amusement park. It's a nuanced kind of story. And so I think I understand why more people haven't seen it. What do you think about why does it resonate so much with people who love film? What is it? What is the connection there?
I mean, if you think about really the core of this whole movie, it's not even the relationship as much as it's their relationship with movies. And that's kind of the common theme. That's what bring those two together, the older man and the young boy, and that's their connection throughout their whole life is the film. It's the movies, it's what they did there, what they watched. And even from the beginning to the end, the common, like, the ending is totally based on their love of movies. And so I think seeing two people that just love film and then seeing all of these shots, which are really fun, of the audience watching film. And this movie has so many of them. Of every time there's a movie playing, we just see the audience, what they're doing, the different people that are there. And I think it just really plays on the nostalgia of what it's like to be in a theater, what it would have been like to be in a small town, and everybody's united around this one thing. Because it does give the sense that in this town, there is nothing better than the movies. There's nothing going on that tops this. This is what every single person wants to do and wants to be at, and there's just not enough of it. And so I think it really plays into that. Like, it knows what it's doing, but it's easy to get on board with it, because if you like movies, you're like, yeah, I get that. I understand that.
Yeah. And I think that the singleness, there's just nothing else going on in the town, and they don't have TVs. Like, I mean, TV is not a thing, and there aren't a lot of other cultural things. So film is everything. And I think that is, I mean, that's just not the situation, I think, for anywhere in the world these days. And I think the idea of film, and film that you watch with other people in a theater, that is an experience that a lot of people love, but that isn't the sort of singular cultural pursuit anymore. And so I think just seeing that on screen is really appealing. It's like, oh, wouldn't that be nice if we could just watch movies like that? Or if movies were that important, if we could take things that seriously. And now people are just forced to make podcasts about movies instead of just enjoying them in public with people.
Watch them on their own at night, yeah.
But it is also, I think there's something with, the movies, the way that it plays with the movies, or there's emotion in the movies. There's a danger to the films. In that they're being censored. This is material that the people can't see, and so there's censoring going on. But they're also physically dangerous, because we have the big fire and even a smaller fire before that, sort of foreshadowing. And so the idea of, like, literally the film can catch on fire is not necessarily true of film, the art form, but it is true of film, the physical material. But I think that plays into the idea that it's not just a tranquil experience. It's something that people have strong opinions about, and thus we need to censor. And it's also something that can be dangerous, at least both physically and metaphorically. And I think that also is something that people really connect with about the film.
Yeah, it almost seems like at the beginning it's this cautionary tale of, if you're dealing with film, it can catch on fire. And they really make a big deal of this, like it could catch on fire. So you kind of know it's coming. But I did not realize the severity of, like, how serious that was, how big a deal. Like, you think now that would never be an issue, but back then, that's like the defining moment that changes everything, is when the cinema burns to the ground, and then Alfredo loses his sight, and you think maybe he died, you don't know, and the little kid Toto has to, like, get him out of the theater, and it's this really kind of tragic moment in the film. And from then on, it kind of transfers, moves on to things have changed in the town, and Toto's getting older, and he's going to move and go away, and it kind of goes on this different direction from there. But it is the whole story kind of structure, it hinges on and around what's going on at the cinema, which is just this fun place for this town. The whole town, like you said, just revolves around the cinema, and the movie does as well.
Yeah. I also think that there's an element of, why people connect with the film, the Cinema Paradiso film, not just the film within the film, but I think people connect with it. This is a very small Italian village, and I think the fact that it's, Italian in the 40s, like, it's even more sort of, to an American audience, it's probably even more old-fashioned than an American town of the same time would be. And I think there's something about, as you grow up, thinking of where you grew up as a small town where nothing was happening. And that's a big part of this story is, Alfredo says, you need to leave and not come back. Like, this is like, if you come back, if you stay here, you're never going to achieve what you need to do. And I think that idea is kind of true for a lot of people, but especially for people interested in the arts. I think people feel like, I grew up in a small town and I need to just stretch my wings and fly. And I remember my high school yearbook, all sorts of people writing their yearbook about how, they were, I came from this small town and I need to get out and fly. And I'm like, this is an inner suburb of Boston. This is not the small towns that people are like, but I think it always feels, maybe if you live in Manhattan, it doesn't feel like this. But I think a lot of people, whether or not the town they live in is small, feel like their world is small as a young person, and they want to expand their world. And so I think this is symbolic of that too.
Yeah, that's a big theme in this film, is the idea of, at least when you're a kid, everything is so small, you can walk to everything you go to. And that's probably the case for anybody. Even if you live in Manhattan, you're probably going to the same store on your block most every day or every week, and your kind of area of where you go is still going to be limited. But the idea of, you grew up in this movie in this small town with not a lot going on, and you're kind of limited in what your possibilities are in your future. And that's what Alfredo keeps going back to with Toto, is your future's limited if you stay here. He doesn't want to teach him how to be a projectionist, because then he'll be stuck doing that the rest of his life, and that's not a future he wants for this kid. He thinks he's smart. He's got something more that he can do with his life. And so they kind of push that narrative of, which I thought was an interesting kind of choice there, is Alfredo's like, go away and never come back. Like, I never want to see you again. I want to hear about you, but I don't want to hear your voice ever again. You have to leave. And I think that's a stance you could take. I think from Alfredo's perspective, sure, like, he could see that because he's stuck in this town. He's never been anywhere. He's now blind, and he doesn't really have the future that he sees for Toto. And I think he kind of sees Toto as, a child of sorts that he wants the best for. But it is an interesting take on this, like, you have to leave it all behind. And then he goes to Rome, the big city, and you make something of yourself. And there's a lot of movies, like you said, that have that idea behind it of, I came from a small town, that's my struggle, is the small town. And then I went to the big city and I made it, and that's how I proved myself. And this kind of plays on those themes.
Yeah. I mean, I think Cinema Paradiso must have been inspired by the film that came 10 years later, Good Will Hunting, where that speech where the Ben Affleck character is telling Matt Damon,
yeah, same thing, huh?
You need to leave, and if you stay here and we're still friends, then I will be mad at you for giving up your opportunity.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine they were thinking of that. They were, as they were writing this film, they were thinking of what Matt Damon and Ben Affleck would write a decade later, and it's the same kind of idea. It's impossible that it went the other direction.
They weren't inspired by this film.
I do think it is interesting, though. Speaking of connections with other films, Inglourious Bastards is I think definitely referencing Cinema Paradiso. I would have to assume it is,
the end of the movie. Yeah.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino. This is a famous film. Quentin Tarantino obviously knows all the films. I mean, he could theoretically just be drawing on the fact that film is very volatile, but it seems like the idea that that would be a crazy ending for a war movie. I have to imagine he was, at least, whether or not he was inspired and specifically alluding to Cinema Paradiso, he would be aware of this.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's how another film that has this film catching on fire as one of the major plot points. That's interesting.
Now, here's a question. Do you think... I think the film is good. And I think the film is a nice reflection on growing up. It's a nice reflection on kind of like a father figure and the different kinds of relationships that we have in life. Not just romantic, not just family, but also the ones we form with people around us. I think it's great. But I think that it also probably gets a lot of credit from critics and movie lovers because it's specifically talking to them. Mm-hmm. And so, like, how much do you think its reputation is shaped by appealing specifically to the kind of people who talk about film?
I would imagine part of it. This doesn't seem like it'd be talked about as much, I don't know, to the average person. But then again, I also think it'd be hard for somebody to watch this and be like, I don't like that. This is a very easy movie to watch. It's not asking a lot of you. It's not like putting forth some crazy ideas. It's very simple, straightforward movie that just is kind of heartwarming and, you know, sentimental in a way. But I don't think this is a controversial movie in any way. So I think maybe that's part of it. Is just everybody who watches it likes it. I think that's pretty clear. But the fact that if the only people who are going to watch it would be people who love movies, maybe makes this seem like a bigger deal of a movie than it would be otherwise. Well, I don't know. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, but I would say that it's not necessarily like that's a cheat code.
Yeah.
Because I think it can be a real double-edged sword. Because I think often, if you do a movie about movies badly, the movie-loving people hate it even more. And so, in some ways, I think you could definitely say, film people love this movie because it's about the wonders of film. But I think if you make a movie about the wonders of film and do it badly, the film people are going to hate it more than is fair. And so, in some ways, that's a testament to the strength of the film.
Yeah, it actually is a good movie that holds up, even though it is kind of in the vein of people who just love film. But I think that's coming from a genuine place. It feels like this is a very personal story. It does feel like a lot of this comes from his experience, and he's just playing on his personal love, and that comes through in the film. You do feel like he really reveres this. He takes it seriously. This is a big deal, and he's not just doing it to have people like it. He's doing it because he genuinely feels that way. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fact that I think sometimes people make movies about movies and they're a little bit too too focused on the movies themselves. And I think here it's much more it's about this relationship with Alfredo, and it's about the space of the cinema, the physical act of projecting the film, and I think that gives it a little bit more weight than just like, I love movies. And it's a little bit more for any moviegoer to latch onto here.
If you don't like movies, you might not like this, though. That may be the one thing. The only people who won't like this movie, you don't like movies in general.
If you don't like movies in general, I think that's probably fair.
Yeah.
There is a moment that I thought sort of summed up the film a little bit. Well, not summed up the film, but I thought it was a nice moment where Alfredo is talking to Toto about his father, and he says he's describing him, and he says he had a mustache like me, and he looked like Clark Gable, and I thought that that those are his two references are kind of, I'm a father figure and cinema is a father figure. And so it's like, you don't have a father in your life, but the two references that I'm giving you are movies and me. And so that it's just drawing our attention to that connection that is being built there.
And then when Alfredo gives his advice, he's always saying these kind of words of wisdom. And then he'll be like, oh, that was John Wayne from this movie. Or he's going to say, that was this actor from this movie. And then at the end, he has his own words of advice. But it plays into the idea of, it's not just him that's the father figure. You're growing up with movies, and movies are then teaching you, and they're becoming kind of a part of your life, a part of your family, a part of what makes you who you are.
And what did you... So, I mean, I think a lot of what we're talking about here is this kind of relationship and growing up. What did you make of the priest with the censoring? And then there's a very famous ending scene of this as all the clips that have been cut out of all the hardcore pornographic clips that have been cut out of the films.
kissing.
No, just the kissing scenes that have been cut out of the films are all spliced together at the end. But how did that fit into the bigger story? I mean, in some ways, I think that's a really important part of this, but it's a little bit separate, I feel like.
Yeah, it does create a strong ending. I felt like a very strong way to end this film, because that's basically the first thing you see in the film as the kid is him watching the pastor, the church leader, say when we need to cut all these films. And then he goes up to Alfredo, and Alfredo's like, you can't take those. And he has a big bucket of those spliced film reels that take out all the kissing scenes. And then it kind of just moves on past that. Like you were saying, like, it doesn't really feel like that part of it is important anymore. There are scenes of people watching the film and be like, they cut the kissing scene again. Why did they do that? But then in the second half, they bring him back. But you kind of leave that behind, and then you almost forget about it, which I think is probably intentional, that they want you to kind of forget that this was set up. Because at the end, when it all comes back together, you're like, oh yeah, that's what that is. It's from the very beginning, and it hits you really hard, and it's a great like ender on that. I wonder if that was like that scene was thought of first, and then everything was brought in to fill it, or if it was the reverse. It's like, I need something to like connect. Because the middle part does feel like it's just this kid growing up, but those two, the beginning and the end, feel like they belong together, and it's a great kind of full circle moment.
It's interesting, and I don't know exactly how the writing process for the film.
Yeah.
But I think there's also an element of, because so much of the film is about growing up, and I think part of the idea of the priest, cutting out the fact that it is kissing scenes. I mean, I think it'd be one thing if you were cutting out content that is, and there's a whole other there's a whole other conversation to be had about violence versus sex in films, and I have controversial takes on that. But I would say that I think the idea that the things that are being censored are not actually bad things, really. They're things that, like, they're naturally, I mean, I guess it depends on who's kissing who theoretically, but like the idea is like, this is like part of the human experience, not horrible like anomalies happening that we want to not let anyone see. It's like, these are part of the human experience that we're cutting out. And I think there's an element of, we want to sort of infantilize the audience, or we want to keep you in this sense of like, child-friendly world, but eventually you're going to have to grow beyond that. And, people can make decisions about what kind of films they want to watch, but I think the idea of like somebody saying you can't watch any of these things, and then as you, like, part of the growing up experience is recognizing that that's happening, or at the end of this, sort of recognizing that all of this whole wide expression of the human experience really is out there, and you were just seeing a sanitized version of it. I think that's got to be part of the point of the film.
The censorship part of it. Yeah, because it does makes you feel like this is a small town. You're very limited. You don't have any other options really, and this one person decides what everybody in the town can see. And then, as it burns down, a new ownership takes over, and the new guy's like, well, I'm going to show all that. And the priest is like, no, I'm watching pornography. I can't watch this. And it's just somebody kissing. But it just shows like the difference in perspectives between the people in the town. And then it's a form of growing up, of seeing things in life that exist in real life. And I think, that comes in the second half of the movie. The kid is growing up. The kid becomes a teenager, and things change, and what he sees change, and what he's interested in changes, at least romantically. And so it kind of shows it shows him growing up in the film, what he's allowed to see, then what comes up later. And then it also is this stance on censorship. Is it good or bad? I don't know that it comes down. I think it would say probably it's a bad thing, because it wants to show all these things, and it's saying people enjoy these more. And the film itself does show kissing, so I think it's on that side of it. But it does take an interesting stance, but I think it works on multiple levels.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that the priest seems like evil. Like
No.
like he is cruelly stamping out all human expression. It seems like he's got his perspective, and maybe that's not the one we agree with, but so I thought that was an interesting take too. That like to let him be without being sort of caricatured.
Yeah, he takes it. It's as if he thinks he's doing what's best for the town. Like he's really trying to do his best, and that's just his perspective. And then somebody else has the responsibility, and they do it differently. But it's not painting either one of them as like the bad guy in the film. And I don't know that there really is a bad guy in this film. It's just events that come and happen that are kind of the drama of everything. But there's not like, this is the bad person we have to overcome.
So touching on that, like, how does that affect your viewing experience? Like, does it make things more boring when there isn't like a clear bad guy?
Yeah.
Or do you just need to know what kind of film you're watching, and you don't, it would be, selling out to like inject some weird bad guy into this? Like, how does that affect your viewing experience?
Yeah, because you don't need a villain or a clear bad guy in a movie for a movie to exist and be good. I don't feel like this story is requiring that in any way. But I think not having that, something that's throughout, it can feel like it drags a little bit as the story goes, because you are at times wondering, where is this ultimately going? What is the big picture point here? What are we trying to do? Even though all the little events are really interesting and engaging, but the overall arching story, maybe there's something there of, if you had a clear villain or bad guy throughout, you wouldn't be left thinking that during the movie. I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. I think if you know going in, that's what you're getting into, I don't think that's an issue. But I did feel like the second half of it was a little slower, a little harder to get through than the first half for me.
Yeah, and I think that's something where I think that's both what people. I think this is a little bit of the part of why film lovers love this film and why everybody hasn't seen it necessarily. I think there's a Hollywood tendency to make things a little bit more black and white. We need to have a bad guy, even if the story is mostly about this relationship, we need to have a bad guy so that it's clear, like, that's the guy that we're up against, this is what's going on. And I think that is a little simpler to understand and a little simpler to follow. And I think, so that's often, like, the Hollywood people are not dummies. Like, that's what a general audience actually, there is something that is connecting with a little bit simpler kind of storytelling, and that can find this kind of meandering and boring. But I think if you really love film, you especially like the fact that it isn't pandering to that general audience.
Yeah, it kind of goes into what you said. It's made for film lovers. And that's just throughout the whole movie. That's what it is. It's not trying to do more than that.
All right, so what would be your verdict on Cinema Paradiso? Great work of cinema. Really fun, exciting, thrilling adventure. What's your final take on it?
I think it's a great movie. I don't know that I would list this in my, picks of great works of cinema if I would put it there. I know a lot of people just really resonate with this movie. It's rated very highly on all of the different movie services that you can rate movies on. So I guess I was expecting, going into this, just knowing how people love it, expecting something more maybe, and maybe my expectations were too high. But I would land as this is a very good movie, a great movie, really well done, but not something that I would consider one of the all-timers. Where would you put it?
I think it's a film. I feel like it's a small story, and that's not. And I feel like the big thing that it's doing that differentiates it is talking about cinema, and so like I wouldn't. And that's kind of interesting, but I wish if I was going to consider it one of the greatest films of all time, I would want the thing that you're talking about to be a little bit more. Like about life and society more than just cinema, and so that's not a problem with the movie, And I can totally see why this, as a celebration of cinema, is very popular with people who love movies. And I think it's especially, I think the fact that it wouldn't connect with a wide audience makes like the sub audience that loves it so much bigger, because everybody feels like, I get it. I get this movie, and that makes me special. And that's not bad. And I think the film is great. And I think people who love film should definitely see it. I think, I think it's also, I think it's beautiful scenery. I think just like the idea of the setting of it is interesting. That kind of, the relationships are good. So, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to count it among the greatest films, but I probably wouldn't put it there on my own list.
How would you remake it if you had to? If the studios backed the truck up and paid you, what would you do?
All right, but now, if we had to remake it, the Hollywood studios, who we know have great taste, back up the truck and say, here's all the money in the world, at least for 2 of these categories, here's all the money in the world, remake this film as a family film, what would you say? And I'll just lead with, I took this a different direction with this one, but what would you say about the family film?
I took this as a family film. I think this would be a good Pixar-style animated movie. I was thinking of the film Luca, which takes place in Italy, but there's like these fish people involved, so I don't know if I'd go that way. And then there's this movie Coco, where he's like, he has this dream where he loves music. So you kind of mix these 2 ideas of this kid that grows up that loves movies in this small town Italy, which I think would be a fun animated thing. And I think you play into, there's a point in this movie where the kid looks back and the lion where the projector is coming out of, like it almost like comes to life in a way. And I think if you played on his imagination, where he's seen films take place throughout his life on different walls or like different places in the city that come to life, I think that'd be a fun way to really get into a story of a kid growing up loving film. Because Pixar does a good job of just, he loves this one thing, we're going to explore that one thing. And I think they could do something like that with this basic story as he grows up. The setting, really fun, unique, and then just keep it with the kid. And I don't know if you need to have him grow up and get too old, but you could probably end it a little earlier. I don't know. That's not like a crazy divergent from the story. So let's see what you got.
Well, my thought was, this is already a family film in my mind. Like this, I mean, and you could argue about that, but I guess I sort of went a different direction, saying, this is about a kid growing up, kind of, and he gets older for sure. But I thought, what if we make this the unfamily friendly version? Okay. If this is starting off as family friendly, so then I was thinking, okay, what if the priest is he's censoring these films? Well, there's some more resistance to it. We have more resistance to it, and so they bring in like the gendarme, or I guess I don't know what the carabinieri. I'm not sure. Anyway, they bring in the Italian police, and they're enforcing this kind of censoring, and the people are upset and so a lot of this comes down to the censoring of content. But one of the directors of the films, whose film has been all sliced up by this small town priest, comes to town on a vengeance. And he is saying, you don't touch my art. So it would still be about cinema. It would be about like the value of an artist. But the director would come and it would turn into a massive shootout with the priest and the Italian police in the theater, between the director and his assistant director and producer. They come with Tommy guns, and it's a big bloody battle in the theater, fighting over the censoring of content in the film. And it turns into this giant bloodbath, which then would need to be censored if the film was ever released. And so that's my non-family friendly version of this.
That is kind of like mixing that with Inglourious Basterds a little bit, yeah. Just a lot more violence.
A lot more. I think that's what you need to have here.
But still taking film seriously. Yeah.
Taking film seriously, and we're playing with that, and I do think in many ways, Inglourious Basterds, because there's also, I mean, there's the reference to just the filmmaking. There's the reference to like Triumph of the Will, and reference to, some of the other kind of filmmakers of that era. I think in many ways that is the unfamily friendly version of Cinema Paradiso already.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the no budget version? What would you do with this?
I think you could have a story here that only takes place in the theater. And if you worked around, you have the projection booth where Alfredo is, and you have the kid who's part of the crowd watching these films. I think you could put the priest in that same theater, telling him when to slice it up. And that could be like a little drama line of, he's not letting us show all the films. But I think the real story would be the kid wants to be in the projections booth, and he wants to do this, but he keeps getting in trouble, or he keeps stealing stuff, or his mom is mad at him. And you can have all that take place in the theater or just right outside of it a little bit. And I think the movie, I would have the story go, if you really wanted to cut this down, to where the fire is kind of like the big end of the movie kind of tragic event. And then we don't know if Alfredo lives or dies. And then we find out that the kid is now taking over the projection booth. He gets his dream, and then Alfredo walks in. He's blind, but he's still alive. And that's kind of like your happy ending. And maybe I would cut that. So it'd be a lot tighter of a story. Wouldn't really be about like growing up, but more of just about this theater in this city and these kind of two people that deal with that theater. I think that could be kind of the heart of it a little bit, but it could work as a story. Yeah.
I mean, I think that the theater gives such a obvious place to sort of locate a contained version of this that my take was pretty similar, but I thought, and I guess I was sort of seeing this almost like you could do it as a play, but like not we're going to be all over town, but we're really just in the theater, and one person comes in and they leave, and another person comes in, and so it's these interactions. I guess the one sort of innovation that I was thinking about, though, was, and this would be a change from the film, but I thought, what if you center it more on Alfredo? And I think that, I guess I was thinking, such a big part of the story is the boy growing up. And so being young, being teenager, being an adult, and I thought if... like that's adding a level of complexity. Certainly, if you did it as a play, that would be more challenging, and it's adding a level of complexity to the story, which is essential to what the story actually is. But if you wanted to do a version of this, it would be interesting to see like Alfredo. What is he getting out of this relationship? What is he, or what is driving him from his past a little bit? How is he approaching this? And we see a lot of this in the film already, but I think it would be a divergence, but I think it might be interesting to see it a little bit more centered on him. And I guess I was thinking, if you kept Alfredo, like if we isolated just to the younger time, and it was sort of like the young Toto with Alfredo, and sort of playing in that specific time, just in the theater, I don't think it would be as good, but I think you could tell an interesting story in that.
Yeah, it's possible.
And now, what about if you were to do this as a TV series, either an ongoing series or like a 10-part Netflix? What would you do here?
I think if I had to pitch something, I would get rid of the childhood growing up whole storyline and just make the kid one of the main characters and not the main character. And I would put it in that post-World War II, time period where they start the movie. It's him and Alfredo and all of those other characters in the town that are fun. Like there's the guy who is in the town square and says, "This town square is mine." That's a fun, weird guy. There's the guy who wins the lottery. There's a lot of these, like he has people in this that they clearly seem like they're based on real people. And so I think you could make a feel of a town, and that town square, if you just have that location, you could do, it'd be a period piece. It'd be kind of about a town in Sicily. I don't know how well this would go over with, an American audience, but I think it could be fun to just set it then and just have the theater, as the thing people want to do. You have the church as kind of this thing that people don't want to do, but it's really the thing that runs the town. A little tension there that could be in every episode, maybe. And then you have all these interesting characters that he's developed that live in this small town and really have nowhere else to go and nothing else to do but interact with each other. And I think you could set it like that. Seems like a strong foundation for a season of TV, maybe even more beyond that. If there's just a lot you could do with just family stories or town events, community events, and how there's a lot you could do with that. I don't think that's revolutionary necessarily, but I think it could be a fun, just like family friendly-ish TV show that could go a long time.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great show, and just sort of not super high concept, but just we're going to be kind of in this community, and I think that could be really fun. My thought was different, and I always like when we had different ideas, but I thought, what if we focus on the adult director Toto? So he's coming back, like he's coming back to town, and maybe he's working on a project. Maybe it's not just he's coming back because Alfredo has died, but he's coming back, or like he's coming back, and he's got lots of things going on. He's got his relationship with his girlfriend that's not a perfect relationship, and he's working on his next film project, and all of these things are going on, and those are subplots that are happening. But also, he's sort of encountering things from his past that sort of lead to flashback sequences. But what if there's a little bit more of like a mystery to it? Like he's haunted by his past, and we don't know. We don't know as we're watching episode by episode, did something truly terrible happen? Did he do something terrible? Or, does he blame himself for this fire that, blinded Alfredo? Which, I think that would be a natural thing to sort of like reveal as we get later into the episodes. But we would have this sort of idea hanging over us of what is he haunted by, or what pull does this town still have on him? And I think that kind of story could be a nice way of exploring the town while having this through line of, we want to figure out what happened.
That'd be a fun way to do it, yeah. And maybe he sees the theater that they're going to destroy. Does he do something to intervene with that? That could be interesting too. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, you could do things like he's there to take advantage of it being destroyed. He's going to film that destruction, or, I don't know. Like, there are all sorts of things that you could do that might be interesting.
Or it's his business that is destroying it.
Yeah.
He owns the business that's doing this and building a parking lot.
Yeah. Well, great. Would any of those be better than the film?
Probably not. I'd be open to a TV show with. I did like the whole setting of that town. I think that was fun. I'd be open to something taking place there. But I think it's a great film on its own. I don't know that I'd change too much.
I agree. I think I could see. In some ways, I could see your TV idea working, because I think the film, I could see spending more time with these people might develop it even more. Like, the film itself is not action-packed, and so even just spacing that out more might work well. But I think the film works well. So, final verdict. Would you recommend it to people? Who would you recommend it to?
I think this is an easy movie to recommend, even if you don't, you're not a huge film fanatic type person. It's just a good movie that isn't controversial in any way. It's not like it's going to upset you, I don't think. I think this is a heartwarming story. It's pretty straightforward. I find it hard to see somebody just have a real issue with this movie. So I think this is a pretty safe bet, easy recommended for almost anybody. Some people will like it more than others, but I can't think of anybody that I would say, oh, this isn't the movie for you.
I know a lot of people who wouldn't love it, but I think they might feel like they were dumb for not loving it. So, I think it's not a film that you're going to be offended by. It's not a film that is going to be confusing. I think you might think it was a little slow, or some people might. But I think if you sort of say it as this is the kind of film that it is, I think that I think that people would feel like, oh yeah, I've now seen a great film. That's great, and it's I understand why you
Yeah.
recommended it, because it's all about movies. Okay, I get it. So I think in that way it would work. I think, I feel like we're not endorsing it that heavily. I do think it's a really good film, and I didn't have the personal connection to it, I think, that some people do. But it's not crazy at all to me that people consider it one of the great films.
Yeah, I could see how watching this film, you have like a personal, visceral reaction of like, oh, this just hits me. It didn't happen for me, but I know that it could happen, and some people it does happen for. So maybe you're one of those people. Give it a shot. Maybe this just really hits home for you.
Give it a shot. There you go. All right, and there you have it. Thanks for joining us on this episode of How to Make Films and Influence People. Check us out at howtomakefilmspodcast.com, and we'll see you next time.